going on, guys? It's ETA Prime back here again with another LaunchBox tutorial. Today we're going to be covering the Sharp X68000, otherwise known as the Sharp X68000, if that's how you want to say it. The X68000 was a home video game console slash home computer. It was only released in Japan in 1987 and the last one was released in 1993. But the great part about this is there's a lot of great games here and you don't need to know how to read Japanese to enjoy them. And one of my favorite parts about most of the shoot 'em up games for the X68000 is the music itself. So in this video I'm going to show you how to get this set up. We're going to get our games imported into LaunchBox and then we'll play a couple X68000 games. For this one here, we're actually going to be using RetroArch and a core called P868K. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Okay, so let's go ahead and set this up. First thing you're obviously going to need are some games. All of mine are .dim, but this emulator does support several different formats. And if you look really closely, some of them are 2 discs and some of them are even 4, but a majority of the good stuff that I've been playing is a single DIM. Along with the games, you'll also need 2 BIOSes to get the core in RetroArch working properly. On my desktop, I have a little folder here. You're going to need the cgrom.dat and the iplrom.dat. And I'm going to show you exactly where to place these. So I'm going to head over to my LaunchBox installation directory. Inside of here, I have mine set up with a folder called Emulators, RetroArch, and System. This is where we're going to be placing our BIOSes. But for this specific system, we need to create a folder inside of here. So I'm LaunchBox, Emulators, RetroArch, System, and I'm going to create a new folder. And we're going to name it KeroPi. K-E-R-O-P-I. KeroPi. We're going to open this up, and we're going to place our 2 X68000 BIOSes right in there. So we'll grab the cgrom.dat and the iplrom.dat. So we've got our BIOSes taken care of. Now it's time to start RetroArch and download the correct core. So from here, I'm just going to find my retroarch.exe. From within RetroArch, we want to scroll down to Online Updater, Core Updater, and we want to find Sharp X68000. This is the PX68K core. We're going to go ahead and download it. It's now installed, ready to go. And I recommend going back to the main menu in RetroArch. We're going to load that core. So we're going to find it from our list of installed cores, load it, scroll down to Information, Core Information, and you can see if your BIOS is present. And as you can see, both of my BIOSes are present, and it tells me place BIOS files in System KeroPi folder. So we had to create that folder. There is an optional BIOS that you can use if you'd like to. It's the iplrom30.dat. But these are the 2 required BIOSes, and this will get you up and running. So we're going to back up and quit RetroArch. Now it's time to move over to LaunchBox. We're going to get the core set up inside of RetroArch, and then we'll import our games. So from the drop-down, we're going to go to Tools, Manage Emulators, RetroArch, and if you don't already have this set up, I have a full tutorial. I'll leave a link in the description. We're going to Edit, Associated Platforms, and at the very bottom here, we need to add Sharp X68000. From the core drop-down, make sure we have PX68K_Libretro chosen and default emulator checked. Select OK, and we can now close that down. It's now time to import our games. From the drop-down menu, we're going to head back over to Tools, Import, ROM Files. I'm going to choose Next, and from here, I'm going to add that folder with all of my X68000 games. It's on my desktop, but I'm going to let LaunchBox import it into the correct folder. So I'm going to find this here. All of my games are in here. Choose OK, and Next. From the drop-down menu, Platform for Imported Games, we need to choose Sharp X68000. Next, RetroArch should already be chosen because we set it up. Would you like to move or copy your files? I'm going to choose the first option here because I do want them imported from my desktop to my LaunchBox folder to keep everything portable. I want to download metadata for my games, so I'll choose Next. And I'm going to try to download as much media as possible, so I'm going to leave everything checked here. I'm also using EMU movies. I'll leave everything checked here. And we don't need to specify any custom options here, so we'll choose Next. It's going to parse the files, give me the name of the game, the file location, and the extension. It also numbers the disks for me. We'll go to Finish. We're going to let LaunchBox download our metadata, all of our artwork and everything like that. Just be patient with it and let it finish up. My games were successfully imported. I'll choose OK, and over in the left-hand side menu here, we should now see Sharp X68000. And there we have it. So I got my games here. Now all that's really left to do is start playing, but there are a few settings that I'd like to show you inside of RetroArch to make your games perform better, mainly the overclock with the X68000 core. So I'm going to find a game here. We'll just go with Atomic Runner. We're going to start the game. I do have an Xbox controller plugged into my PC, and that's normally how I play my games. But if you're using a keyboard, you can always press F1 to get back into the RetroArch settings. But if you're using an Xbox controller, press the Xbox button. It'll bring us into our quick menu for RetroArch. Now there's a couple settings in here that I like to change. We're going to go to Options, and mainly my CPU speed. So it's usually set at 10 megahertz, but a lot of these games do take a little more. 33 megahertz overclock seems really good, but on some shoot 'em ups, I did have to go to 100 to eliminate some lag. But most of the time, 33 megahertz will be perfect for most games. Now in 1993, when the last 68000 was released, the CPU in that was actually clocked at 20 megahertz instead of 10 like the original, so some games do take advantage of this overclock. As for RAM size, I've just always set it to 12 megabytes because I have plenty of RAM to spare here. You can use analog if you're using a controller. I recommend turning this on. I've always set up my Player 1 and Player 2 joypad types to default. It defaults to the same control scheme that I have set up inside of RetroArch. So we're going to back up here and resume game. So I'll press my A button, get going with this one, and then we'll move over to another game. And I'll tell you, this one might need a little more overclock. I do notice a little bit of lag here, so I might go up to 66 megahertz with this one. But you kind of need to be careful, because if I did jack this up to 100, it could speed the game up and it would be pretty much unplayable. So you kind of need to find that sweet spot for each game. I have my controller set up to start and select. We'll go to Exit Game. And we can now run something else. I'll just find it through here. And I'll go with a game called Cybercore. And this one definitely seems to be running fine at 33 megahertz. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Sharp 68000. Now, in order to swap disks inside of RetroArch, you can always do that very easily just by going back to your quick menu by pressing F1 on your keyboard or your hotkey on your controller and swap disks from there. But overall, there are some really good games here, and it's definitely worth adding to your LaunchBox collection. But that's it for this one. We really appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments below. And like always, thanks for watching.